Hey class, how you doing? Semester is wrapping up and already past Thanksgiving. Things are going fast. Unfortunately, there's also a lot of respiratory illnesses going around. So flu is going around, COVID is going around, and now RSV. So RSV is another. It's a cold-like. Cold is typically rhinovirus. It's a cold. I mean, heck, COVID is a cold, if you want to call it that, but it's a cold-like virus that affects upper respiratory system. So, and of course, when you get these illnesses, what many people do is they take over-counter medicines to help treat that. And if you follow the news at all recently, phenylephrine was found to be ineffective, and that's what this article talks about. So this week's article I chose, it was in the Chemical Engineering News this week. Well, it was also interesting, they questioned the efficacy of other over-the-counter medicines. So I've taken phenylephrine before, and yeah, it doesn't really work that well at all to me. What does work very well for decongestants is pseudoephedrine. So Sudafed is a common name of it, but pseudoephedrine. And the problem with pseudoephedrine is you have to go to the pharmacy and get your ID, and you're only allowed to buy so much. And the reason for that is, if you look at the structure, here's phenylephrine, and here is pseudoephedrine right here. And you can see, of course, why pseudoephedrine is a little bit more controlled, because it's you just have to cleave this hydroxyl bond here and you get methamphetamine, so which is a pretty strong drug there, an illegal drug. So I wanted to show you some of these other things here. So here is ephedrine, and here is amphetamine. So if you look here for amphetamine and also ephedrine, so you can see one thing to note with these structures, this line here is a methyl group. So if you look at pseudoephedrine and compare it to ephedrine, I thought I had these set up, but I guess they moved on me. So here is pseudoephedrine. You can see it's very close to structure. There's still a methyl group here. That line is a methyl group. This the hydroxyl group here with the Fisher diagram is this one is pointing up, where the one here in pseudoephedrine is pushing down. So ephedrine and pseudoephedrine are very close. So pseudoephedrine, so fake ephedrine, right? So not quite ephedrine. So it's really just a bond angle away from ephedrine. And ephedrine is an amphetamine. So here is, it's an amine, and here is amphetamine. Amphetamine is and amphetamines, these are all amphetamines, okay? So phenylephrine, pseudoephedrine, ephedrine, amphetamine, and methylamphetamine, these are all amphetamines. And amphetamines are also amines, and amine is a nitrogen containing, so you can see the ephedrine here, and amphetamine here has the nitrogen. It has an organic. Organic means carbon containing, so these are amines, and that's where that terminology comes from. And amphetamine, ephedrine, these are very powerful stimulants, and methamphetamine is even more powerful stimulant. So stimulants are things that stimulate, especially the central nervous system, can also stimulate the rest of your body. So, and in this article also talks about pseudoephedrine can raise blood pressure. And oh yeah, it does. It definitely does. I mean, this is better than caffeine of sorts for the stimulants. I don't recommend you take pseudoephedrine or any amphetamines other than their prescribed or directed uses. And also on the article talks about other types of things. So for me, what I personally use when I have decongestant issues, so I use fluticasone. That's a nasal spray. It's Flonase was the brand, and I get it for cheap from Costco. It's the generic Costco version. Problem with fluticasone, it's a steroid. And if you put steroids on your on your tissues, excessive uses can cause lesions. So if you use too much fluticasone nasal spray, it will give you sores and bloody noses. So be careful with that and overuse. So that's why they say the recommended dosages and stuff. And that's the reason why you shouldn't go over the recommended dosages for that, because it can cause bleeding. The other thing I do use is ibuprofen. So the COX-2 inhibitor. So all these drugs, they do something. This here, it shows, it talks about the mechanism of the phenylphedrine and pseudoephedrine, uses these alpha adrenergic receptors. And the problem with phenylephrine is that less than 1% of this makes it to the bloodstream, whereas pseudoephedrine, more than half makes it to the bloodstream. The other thing is a dosage. So the dosage of phenylephrine is 10 milligrams. The dosage of pseudoephedrine is typically 200 milligrams. So you're talking about 20 times the dose and 50 plus times the upkeep. So essentially from this, pseudoephedrine is 1,000 times or more effective than phenylephrine. So yeah, pseudoephedrine does work. At least it works for me. I personally prefer fluticasone because the pseudoephedrine, I mean, I can feel the stimulant action. I don't like taking drugs, really, to be quite honest with you. I try to avoid it as much as I can. One thing, if you do go my route and take fluticasone, it takes about 4 days to take full effect. So it takes a while, and it's a steroid interaction. That's not these receptors interaction. So yeah, it's an interesting article. It was an interesting read, and it might be an issue for some of you guys, because a lot of people, I oftentimes get sick around this time of year. I had it ever since I was a student, right? I mean, the finals are done, you go home, and then you start getting the sniffles, right? So it's really common for me to get some sort of cold around this time of year, and I'm hoping not to. The good news is the flu vaccine seems to be very effective. The COVID vaccine, the latest strain that's coming from the East Coast, the latest iteration of the vaccine of COVID seems to be working for that. That's what the latest data are suggesting. I mean, that's not an official diagnosis, but that's kind of what the epidemiologists and medical practitioners are saying about the vaccines. This year, the vaccines seem to be very effective. RSV, though, I mean, unless there is an RSV vaccine now, but that's typically had for people that are immunocompromised or elderly. So I'm not going to get that one, and I would get that if I were allowed to, but I mean, it's not recommended for me, so I'm not going to get it. And I've had RSV before several times. It's not fun, but it's not terrible either. But most adults that get it, it's really only young kids and elderly and immunocompromised that really have bad complications from RSV. So, also interesting in this article, they said, like, hey, maybe there's some other things that aren't working. Guafenicin might be one of them. So guafenicin, this is an expectorant. What that does is it makes your coughs more productive. So if you're coughing, it causes you to cough more stuff out, kind of thing. I have taken that before. I don't like guafenicin that much. It kind of makes my pupils dilate, and it makes me feel crummy. So in the cough suppressants, I don't like going to I will go to the doctor, but I mean, cough suppressants a lot of times they'll be a narcotic like codeine. But I mean, those certainly work well. The one over counter that I will use on occasion is dextromethorphan. So it affects your brain. It reduces your coughing reflex, but if I take too much of that stuff, I feel like a lizard is the best way to describe it. I just feel like kind of sluggish. You know, I kind of feel like I'm a cold-blooded animal when I take too much of that stuff. So I just don't like taking drugs. But I mean, if I can't, you know, sleep from coughing too much, I will take them. But it's with drugs, it's always risks versus rewards. I mean, same thing with vaccines. There's risk versus rewards. A lot of medical stuff is risk versus rewards. And I mean, one thing about over-the-counter cough and cold stuff is that the risks are relatively low in taking them. And but unfortunately, with the low risks, sometimes the question is, do they even work? And they've recently found here that phenylephrine doesn't really work at all. I kind of knew that already, because I remember I took phenylephrine after they started putting pseudoephedrine behind the counter, and it's like, yeah, this stuff doesn't work. But then when fluticasone came off of the prescription-only medicine, I was thrilled. So I used that instead. But I, of course, hope you don't get sick. No one wants to get sick. I hope that you take care of yourself mentally and physically, of course. If you find yourself that you're not being taken care of, you know, please let me know. I will do what I can to help, especially with basic needs or mental health issues. And I hope you put happiness as a priority recently. Unfortunately, the semester is coming to an end, and I can tell you personally, I am swamped with work. But I will also tell you, it is much easier being a faculty member than it is a student. I still remember the stress of being a student, and so I do not envy you students in your situations, and I can tell you it's much easier, but we are coming to the end of the semester, which means lots of work. So do your best to look after yourselves, and if you find yourself needing some extra help, please let me know, and I will always do what I can to help. So hope you enjoyed the article. I know I talked a little longer this time. I had a very short article before Thanksgiving, so I guess it all evens out, or at least I should say a video. So aloha for now.